Good evening, everybody. On behalf of Precept and obviously our panel, delighted to welcome everyone this evening. My name's James Ely. I'm a director here at Precept, and for tonight, I guess for better or worse, the facilitator for the panel event. I'm sure many of you in the room probably may not have heard of Precept. We're a brand performance business that creates more value from people's identity, digital and marketing activity. So typically businesses engage with us when they're frustrated, they don't have a clear plan for their brand, digital and marketing development. We work with lots of businesses that have really entrepreneurship at the centre of everything that they do and at their being. And obviously we certainly hope we've got a little bit of an entrepreneurial outlook ourselves as well. So as I mentioned before, we're delighted to have secured the services of an esteemed panel. One of the panel members informed me that the only other panel he's done was hosted by Amazon. That was about three minutes before we started. So I feel under a bit of pressure to obviously live up to that billing. But just I'll give a quick intro and then ask all of the panel members to introduce themselves. We've got Simon Bourne, founder of the Hand-Dyed Shoe Company, Billy Johnson and Michael Farnsworth, owners of Toro, Rick McCordle, who's got a variety of entrepreneurial interests, and Rob Cooper from UNW Corporate Finance. So if I could ask you just to spend a couple of minutes each introducing yourselves, your business interest, and I guess why you guys are passionate about entrepreneurship. So Simon, if I can begin with you, if that would be okay.
So good evening, Simon Bourne from the Hand-Dyed Shoe Company. Passionate about a lot of things really, and there's a few people in the room who get what I'm about and know what I'm passionate about. The big thing for me is customers. Absolutely love customers. I love relationships. My business is we create unique handmade shoes, so made to order. It's a great buying experience. It's not just walking into a normal shoe shop. We're set in an old 19th century seminary just outside Durham called Usher. It's very much a destination business. You come along, you make an appointment, and we take you through a fitting, and it's a great fun experience. We always say it's not Amazon. You can't have them tomorrow. It's 4 to 6 weeks to wait for the shoes, and that's part of the fun, is that you've got to wait and build that anticipation. And my ambition with it is to sort of grow that magic and grow that anticipation and turn it into something much bigger and much better. And it's doing quite well. So yeah, the Hand-Dyed Shoe Company. Google us.
Robert.
My name's Robert Cooper from UNW Corporate Finance. So I suppose in a nutshell, I left school when I was 18, set up in business, didn't bother going to university, and fluffed A-levels, if I remember rightly. And then started off in a business selling end-of-life inventory from big retailers such as Argos, DSG Retail, Olympus Cameras, stuff like that. Later moved into a property business that was backed by a sort of large local corporate business. So we raised money from those guys. That was buying and selling property. That went on until 2009 time. So you imagine with the financial crash, that obviously didn't sort of help things from a lending point of view. I then somehow ended up in a business in Calcutta in India for a couple of years. After a few years of that, I came to the end of my journey with that, and then started doing my accountancy exams, and then fell into corporate finance. Genuinely by accident, actually. It all happened within a couple of weeks. And I think for me, it was all about, I'd worked on that side, like these guys are, I guess, and wanted to work on the other side of the fence to, I suppose, become more rounded and just see what it was like. Since then, now I tend to specialise in venture capital fundraising. So to give you an example, in the last sort of 18 months, the smallest raise we've been involved in directly was for about £325,000. The largest was 3.4 million. That was for a sort of drone business based in Reading. So yeah, that's me.
Cool.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Michael Farnsworth. I'm a co-founder of Toro with William, who's sitting next to me. It's a business we founded in 2013, and it's a leather lifestyle accessory company. We make covers for tech accessories, iPads, phones, but we also do gents' wallets, notebook covers. And it's a brand that we started in 2013 when we both worked as police officers. So what I'm passionate about is, I'm passionate about the brand, and I'm passionate about building a brand and a company that we can take forward and grow and make international. That's what we want to do. When we both met in, when was it, about 2002?
2002, we joined the police force.
We joined the police together. Went with separate ways through our police careers, but eventually came back together It would have been about 2009, 2010 when we both worked in the same office, and Toro was born from that. It was born from an idea that we wanted to design something that didn't exist at the time. We wanted a nice cover for an iPhone. We couldn't find one. We couldn't find one that was made of genuine leather. We couldn't find one that fitted what we wanted at that time. So the idea was, let's make our own and let's focus the idea of the company around the brand. Let's build a brand and make it about that.
I joined the police force when I was 18 years old. A bit like Robert, didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left school. My brother was at university and he didn't seem to be enjoying himself. It certainly didn't look fun. My dad was a policeman and he sort of shoved us in that direction to say it was a good career, but it was never really the calling that I felt inside. I'd always been entrepreneurial. I always wanted to make money. I always wanted to create something. So throughout my whole career, I was looking for where that opportunity would come in, where I could satisfy that entrepreneurial urge. And it came together through discussions regarding something that we wanted, which wasn't in the marketplace at the time. And I'm passionate about entrepreneurship because, well, I love everything I do every day. The fact that we could create and build a brand that was everything that would be our ideal if we could create our own brand and then live that every day. And every aspect of the business, everything that we do is around, if we could ultimately create what would be perfect for us, how would we do it? And we get the chance to do that, and I love it.
Hi, just listening to some of those, just very briefly, why did I have an interest in entrepreneurialism? I guess also messed up my A-levels, had to get a job. I worked at Barclays Bank and there were people coming into the branch. I managed to get promoted to cashier while I was there, and people paying in lots of money and big piles of checks, and I thought, ooh, I'd like to do that one day. So I ended up leaving there because the bank wasn't going to obviously allow me to do that. Went travelling, spent 3 or 4 years doing a business degree at Northumbria, which didn't prepare me for self-employment. And then shortly after, I just started and made lots of mistakes. But over the last 25 years, I've had some success. Not all success, but mainly success in terms of starting a business from nothing, growing it, and then selling. I've sold 2 businesses. The second one last year, called Cottages in Northumberland, which hopefully explains what it does. Since then, I have been working with Northumbria University, helping student and graduate enterprise, some really smart, young, energetic students and graduates, some great ideas, and helping them and hopefully allowing them to develop their business without making some of the same mistakes I did, which cost me a lot of money and time. And I've also just invested in a startup, which is really exciting. So I'm energized again.
Cool. Thanks, guys. I was going to say, great to get the background and how you get, and I think that I jotted down here, which might look a bit strange if anyone looks at my notes, but very much you guys were kind of scratching your own itch in that there was something not in the market. I was going to ask you, Simon, how did you get into the business that you're in now?
It was I'd worked in, well, I think it's very similar stories actually. I'll just rewind sort of back to sort of 17 A-levels time and all that sort of stuff. I've been an entrepreneur since I left school, but just without knowing what an entrepreneur really was. It wasn't never really about money for me. It was just I've always had a need to be doing something, something that's a bit different to sort of my day job, if you like. So I left college, went into the local authority, initially as admin, and aside from that, I was doing lots of journalism, so sports writing in particular. Worked for ITV and Setanta Sports in my spare time. And when I say worked, I mean like I probably made 200 quid in 3 or 4 years of doing this. You know, it was all freelance with a view of trying to break into that industry. And I loved it. You know, it wasn't until I sort of started my family that I decided that I didn't really want to be away every weekend and sort of dedicate as much time to it. But in doing that, I'd since gone from the admin position into a marketing role within the authority, which was lots of content writing, very creative. and subsequently after that went into a small business, which is when it really sort of kicked in. So this small business was handmade bespoke furniture, retailed from sort of £10,000 to £20,000 for a piece. We had a concession down in London. It was great. I absolutely loved it. But my business came from sort of, again, similar to your story, watching the guy who had that business rocking up in his nice Porsche every day, and I'm in there like doing all the work and feeling a bit jealous, like of what he had in his lovely lifestyle, which he painted. And I thought, well, I just need to come up with an idea that's equally as spectacular as these handmade leather sofas. And it was the scraps on the floor that, well, I could take the scraps and convert that into a product that we could sell. And it started off just as a very small craft business on Etsy and eBay, with wallets, belts, key rings, any sort of little trinket that could just be hand sewn and hand dyed. And then I found the thing that I was really passionate about, which was something I could wear. I'm obviously very expressive with my tattoos and the way I dress, and the idea of creating a pair of handmade bespoke shoes for me was just like, it was like gold. It was something that somebody else didn't have, and I think that message really is grown within society over the last sort of 5 to 10 years of uniqueness and celebratory of an individual. And yeah, it's just sort of caveated on the back of that, really. It's come at the right time.
I guess taking that forward if we can, and for probably Billy, Michael, Simon, and Rick, if I can direct this one out. I guess either with your current business or any previous interests, did you sort of 3 questions in one, really? Did you have any doubts when you started things? What were those doubts, and how have you gone about overcoming them? I guess if I address that to the chaps first.
Well, we had huge doubts all along the way because we didn't follow any blueprint. We had no business education. It was a simple case of we really liked what we created. We started selling it online initially, and we got a lot of traction early on. So we knew there was a market there and people were buying into it. And then within about 6 months, we had the very difficult conversation of both married, mortgages, kids. Do we leave our very steady jobs with Northumbria Police as detectives, respectable, all the rest of it, and go all into this and see where it takes us, or do we just put it to bed as a fun thing that we did and a bit of life experience? And at that point, we had to make a commitment that we would do this with everything that we had. And there was huge doubts, obviously, to take that risk. And ever since, where we go, what's going to happen next, we don't know. So we sort of operate in a way where we have no preconceived ideas about what's going to happen. We've just got to make the best decisions we can on the information that's available at the time, and hope that we are going to make more good decisions than bad ones.
I would agree with that. I think there'll always come a point if you're going to start a business or as you're growing a business where there becomes a time where you have to make a decision, and that decision will be, it could have great financial problems for you if it goes wrong, or it could work out well and off you go. And ours was quitting the job that we had that paid a good salary, and I remember after I handed me notice in, because people generally don't quit the police unless you've done something wrong. So, to
which
walk
obviously
in,
neither of them.
which is neither of us, I'll hasten to add, but to walk in the office and hand a piece of paper across the desk saying I'm gone in a month's time doesn't happen that often. So to do that was a big deal. And I remember I went and sat at McDonald's and I had a cup of coffee, put my head in my hands. So I had a young family at the time. I had a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And you think back, well, should I be sticking to this job that pays a decent salary but isn't really what I want to do, or is it selfish for me to quit and follow what I want and follow my dreams and do what I want to do? And that's a hard decision to make, and I think it's having the backing of your family as well and other people who aren't involved to have your back and say,
looking back now,
I trust what you're going to do. I trust you that even if you make a dog's dinner of this, then we're going to work together and put it right.
We did walk around like we'd been punched in the stomach for about 6 months after that, thinking, this is the stupidest thing we've ever done.
Well, we both decided that we'd quit at the same time. So I went to work at 9 o'clock and I said, I've just got to do it straight away because I can't wait. So I went straight in and put my notice on the desk, and then the inspector at the time, he said, just go and have half an hour. So I went to McDonald's, I'm ringing Billy. have you quit yet? No, I haven't done it yet. Get in, do it. I'm on my last legs, yeah, you've got to quit.
It was funny actually because you had some extra annual leave than me. That's why the times had to change when you had to put it in. That's how it worked. So Michael publicly had left before I did, and then the rumour mill in the police force, it's like being at school, that quickly started swirling, and I had a load of people, because I knew our friends, that come up was going, have you heard about Michael quitting the police to become a train driver? And I just had to go along with it. It was everything from being, you're going to be a train driver.
Yeah, I was going to drive a metro.
Going to work in a all sorts of crazy things going on.
That was funny. Anyway,
all good stuff. Simon, from your point of view, what doubts did you have when you kicked things off?
Very similar story. Young daughter. When I came home one day with some leather and I decided I was going to make these little things, and it was a great little craft business, and you know, it's scrap leather from the floor which I could take for free, turn it into a key ring which I could sell for a tenner, and it made a nice little pot of money which we could go away on a weekend. Had my salary which was secure, I had a good reputation, and I was well respected, and I enjoyed my job, and that was the, you know, why would I want to leave any of that? But I did, and there's again a few people in the room that know my story. I got myself into £25,000 worth of debt in starting the hand-dyed shoe company. So once I decided I wanted to do shoes, I made similar, you know, your thing there with the mistakes and stuff, and I'm looking at you thinking, God, he looks like an entrepreneur. He looks like somebody who's very, you know.
Well,
but
just
like,
hang on a second.
you know, and I'm thinking, well, actually, that sounds quite familiar, you know, the mistakes and things like that. I spent £10,000 of that money on some stock, which is still under my bed at home. Is rubbish. It's just not good quality. It wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I expected. It took 9 months to come, and I couldn't get any of that money back. They disappeared on us very quickly. So that was £10,000 gone. That's a bank loan. That's debt that I'd put onto my family. So again, your story is quite resonates. And so then I went again and I got another £6,000 loan. Spent that on another area, Facebook marketing and all that. Everyone's heard the stories. Just click the boost button. Everyone comes through Facebook. Spent thousands on it. That was the wrong thing to do. It didn't work. So then I'm now £17,000 in debt. And similarly, it's that story. You know, this is my dream. It's not my wife's dream. I had a perfectly good job. What am I doing? And Christmas 2016, I was in a really sort of dark place. It was the hardest time of my life because I had done this to my family, wasn't sure where we're going to pay this loan back or how we're going to do it, and yet still was waking up with the urge of, well, I need to get some more money to go again. I spent it in the right areas, and ultimately, I'm still servicing that debt now, but like I can, and that's the beauty of it. So, yeah, it's hard. It's not the easiest thing I've ever done in my life, but like, you know, my wife even now would sit here and say, like, it's the best thing I've ever done in my life. And now I look at it as £25,000 of education. So how much do you pay for a university degree? So I look at it as like, well, it's 25 grand, but like the amount of stuff that I learned for that 25 grand about where to spend money, where not to spend money, how to challenge things, how to question the legitimacy of somebody's claim and all this sort of stuff. Like, it's stood me in such good stead for the 2 or 3 years since then. And I'm sat here now without that job, without that salary, having taken the plunge in the beginning of last year. And I love it. So
great, thanks. Rick, I mean, you mentioned obviously in the intro, you've started business up, you've taken them through to send them and stuff. The position you're in now, where you invest in different businesses, you've got a portfolio. I suppose, do you still have doubts in terms of how you're going about your daily business, even though you might not think about it as entrepreneurial? What are the doubts that kind of reoccur to you?
Yes, I do. Unlike when I first started, I had no commitments, no mortgage, well, I did have a mortgage, but I bought a house with enough rooms so that the rental income from the other rooms paid the mortgage, so I had pretty much no cost. But having had a failure of a business in the middle, I think I made the classic entrepreneur's mistake of having a couple of really good businesses that did really well and then thinking I was invincible, and then raised £1 million, nearly £1 million for that business, and then it disappeared. So my attitude to risk has changed dramatically since then.
In what way?
Dramatically. I am much more cautious. I am much more, I need to understand a lot more about what I'm doing and understand the opportunity much better. Whereas before I might have just been a bit more instinctive about some of the decisions. Now I really want to understand it properly and understand the opportunity.
Okay, thanks, guys. I guess you guys are all very successful, and I'm sure there are many more positives to come. I guess I'd like to hone in with everybody actually, and as in what's been their biggest buzz since starting and running your own business, and kind of why. Maybe Simon again.
The first one that comes to my mind was the very first pair of shoes that I sold. It was in a Bannatyne's cafe at Chesley Street. I met a guy called Colin Elric, who was a former bookseller. Few of you might know him in the room. He saw a picture of me sitting in a river, hand dyeing a pair of shoes, which has become a real sort of legacy photo within the business, because it ultimately exists because of that photograph. And that was just me just mucking about, really proving a point to my wife, who said I couldn't dye a pair of shoes in the middle of the river. So I did, and she took a photo and it ended up with the paper. Colin got in touch. I like these shoes, I'm interested. I met him, and he gave me £180, and I made about £15 out of that order, excluding labour, so actually made nothing. But that it was the best buzz, and I can feel myself almost welling up now thinking of it, because I got back in the car, called my wife straight away, and I said, this Colin guy's bought a pair of shoes. Like, he's actually bought like this thing that I conceived in my mind, and somebody had actually paid their hard-earned money to have it. Yeah, I think it was the moment, and that's when I knew at that moment that I need to make this my life.
It's the first sale. What about you guys? What's been the biggest buzz?
I would say selling your first products has a place there, but for me it was seeing one out and about, if you like, that somebody's bought, that you see in a bar or a pub. And I was in a pub in the Lake District, and there was a chap having a pint, and there was one of our products next to his stuff on the table. And that's when you think, because when you see orders coming in and you're processing them and you look at them on whatever platform you're selling on, it's just words on a screen. You don't appreciate that each one of them, someone's going to get it and use it and have an experience with it, and seeing somebody with one in the flesh, if you like, is a good experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar. Yeah, the first significant sale of the marketing agency that we set up was winning Swallow Hotel's work. We looked after all of their marketing for a while, and for a small agency of 3 or 4 people, and Mark, the other director, and myself were pretty much winging it at that point. And to get that contract was, I mean, we just went out and got hammered. It was great.
Good detail.
Great.
So Billy,
Well, I suppose for me it was when we won the North East Business Award for Best Newcomer. I think what made that so important and impactful for me was when we left the police force, our whole world was the network of the police, and that's who our friends were, that's who everybody was. And everyone, because like Michael said, you don't leave unless you're told to leave, and we'd made this choice to throw away a steady career, pension, all the rest of it, to go on this crazy journey to sell leather goods. There was almost a part of us that was a little bit embarrassed, and we didn't want to look stupid in front of everyone, and there was like a willingness for us to fail from the haters, if you like, of that world as well, who didn't like the fact that we were doing something a bit different. So we kept our heads down, didn't really publicise what we were doing locally. We just worked hard, got on with it, grew the business, and then we entered that really on a bit of a whim. We didn't really have any marketing strategy about entering competitions and trying to get any sort of press or publicity. I cannot remember why we even did it. We just thought, we're getting to the point where we're proud of our business. We thought if things are going well, why not?
Yeah.
And then when we won that, to be recognised for an award, it was the moment where we, for me anyway, felt we don't have to be afraid of this anymore. We don't need to keep our heads down anymore. We can be proud of what we've achieved, and that has been an excellent springboard for us to go on and do really well, to give us the confidence in that we've done the right thing.
Rob, coming to you if I can on that. What's been, and this may be really hard because I guess the amount of stuff you're involved in, but what's been your most fulfilling deal that you've been involved or party to, and kind of why? Yeah. What's been the most?
Actually, it's not to do with the size of the round. Actually, probably there was a company I raised money for before Christmas. There's a guy. I'll say who it is anyway. I'm sure you won't mind. It's a company called TrenchNet. There's a guy who used to work for Nomad Digital on the Quayside there, a guy called Kevin Latimer, who basically invented his own device for transmitting Wi-Fi. It's a bit like a dongle, but just a big thing, you know, sort of a super dongle, if you call it that. And again, similar stories. Sorry, it sounds a bit wrong, doesn't it? But similar to what these guys saying, I met him through Virgin Startup actually. So he had taken on 25k, which would have been personal debt, because that's how those things work. It looks like it's all business, but it's not. It's personal debt. And then had invented this thing, got proof of concept, started getting a few sales. Then found a private investor, which actually I didn't find from. Actually, I was just helping with this plan stuff sort of on the side. It wasn't a client of UNW in any way, but his wife actually bumped into someone at a party, and her husband, I kid you not, a week later invested 120k in his business, which I've never seen anything quite like it actually. But anyway, and then in all honesty, went through probably not so much a rocky patch, but more having to prove the concept, running out of cash in all honesty. And then towards last Christmas was been speaking to various funders, trying to raise them a sort of 200 to 300k, everything else, and we eventually did find someone with Mercia Technologies who were based in Newcastle, so they agreed to put 300 odd k in, and we agreed heads I think on the 1st of December, and it went through on it was the last Friday before Christmas, whenever that would have been, so the 18th, 19th, something like that. And in all honesty, I mean, Kevin would probably say that, I'm sure he wouldn't mind me telling you this because he'd probably say the same as here now, but I mean, if he hadn't got the money in then, the wages probably wouldn't have been paid, and it was, and I mean, I helped him out, again, as a sort of friendly with that, but it was really satisfying, actually, genuinely, to see the guy get the money in and actually be able to crack on, which actually, ironically, was the smallest deal I've probably ever been involved with at UNW, but again, it's not really about that, but it was more because sounds a bit corny, but I've been on that sort of journey with him from when he very first started, so that was...
I think it's interesting as well that all the stories that you've pulled out from there all have there is a degree of emotion, passion, and everything else. I think sometimes entrepreneurship might look two-dimensional or just about making money, but actually all of the things that you drew out there had were welling up and bringing emotions out, and which is fantastic for the audience to hear, I'm sure. Just moving slightly from the positive to maybe a little bit of negative, just a small bit. I guess, what are the things from the guys around the businesses? What are the things that keep you awake at night? And I guess, how do you manage that negativity?
It used to be my peer group, my schoolmates that I was quite competitive with, that I felt I wanted to try and keep up with them. They were all doing really well. And I was determined that this route that I'd gone down, which was not like any of my other mates, that I was going to try and keep up or try and do as well. I'm not as bothered about that now. I'm more interested in, again, sort of learning from some of the mistakes, really. I don't want to get to a position where I don't know whether or not we're going to have enough money at the end of the month to pay the staff. I mean, that did keep me awake for a few months in the business towards the end of it. And it was horrible, and I don't ever want to do that again. So even now, liquidity, cash flow are absolutely massively important to make sure that you've got some room, some runway, I don't mean to be too jargony.
I think what keeps me awake at night is just the fact that I'm obsessed with the business, and I'm constantly thinking about where the next opportunity is going to come from for our business. The decisions that we've made recently, are they the right things to do? Where could we go next with it? Is the product range right? How's the manufacturing going? how's the marketing going? Because I know that there's nobody above Michael and I who's got a grip of any of that. Nobody's going to give me the day off to not have to think about anything and allow things to continue running. And I suppose it's one of the things that I like most about it, that if I go on holiday, I'm dead excited to come back and go back to work and keep on it. But it's hard for family life. Like, my wife hates the fact that I'll pause a film and then start going off on a tangent about a tannery that we might have found on the internet, which could do a supply of a different type of leather, and then I won't shut up about for the rest of the night, and then I can't sleep thinking about it. From first thing in the morning, you're talking about sales figures, what we do a lot of business on Amazon, what one of their latest initiatives is, should we get involved in it, what the implications of that are, and it's just 24/7 all of the time thinking about everything. So I just don't feel like ever relaxed. But would I swap that for a 9 to 5 where I can chill out and watch a bit of sport or play golf at the weekend without worrying about anything? Definitely not.
I think I can go back to when we first left our previous job and we sat round my kitchen table with a cup of coffee on. Must have been the first day when we were both sitting together, and we said, right, how many items do I have to sell today to keep this going? And we worked out we needed to sell something like 34, 35 things in a day. And that we had to sell that every day, and we were heavily involved with Amazon at the time. A lot of our sales were coming through Amazon then. So you'd be lying in bed, and if you were at 32 or 33, you'd be saying, right, we've got to get to 35 or 36 or whatever it was. And there was always a worry of, what if Amazon turned the tap off? What if they changed the algorithm for search results? It was suddenly don't appear anymore. What if we've made a mistake somewhere that we don't know about in the back end, where we've breached a rule where we're going to get kicked off the site? And
So how do you deal with that? Because that's, I mean, both of those, your shared experiences there are pretty intense. How do you manage that?
They're the things that you have to live with, because when you move on a few years, you have similar problems. You've just got to learn to, if it's different, you've just got to learn to deal with them. Because no, I was just going to say that I don't think there'll ever be an occasion when you run your own business where you can sit there worry free and go, right, I'm off on holiday for 2 weeks. I don't have to worry about anything. I don't think that would ever.
I think for me, it's I'm heavily invested in whatever it is that I'm thinking about at that time. And when that thing happens or it's achieved, or then I naturally have a lull, like I can almost predict it. So Northeast Business Award, winning that, and then like afterwards, like just crashing for like almost a week, and almost like, so that's what keeps me awake at night. It's like, well, what am I going to do now? Like, I've done that. Like, what's next? Like, have I got anything left in this business to achieve? Should I just shut it down and just forget it? Like, it's those crazy thoughts that just consume my mind, and just overthinking kicks in, and then usually I need to take a couple of days just to sort of come out the other end of that again, and something.
So how do you manage that, Simon? Is that just you coming to terms with yourself, or do you talk about it?
I do talk about it. A lot of people, again, who know me, know I talk about it, and I try I try lots of different things. I talk about it internally in the family. I talk about it externally with my customers. I talk about it externally on social media and with an audience on there. I seek advice. I've got mentors. I've got people around us, and pick people's brains. And I think that's the business has allowed me to not be okay sometimes. You know what I mean? Because whereas employment, I always felt like you don't have that. You just got to get up and go to work. Like, that's what it is. Whereas the business has just allowed me to learn about myself and what I need in the space and the breaks and everything like that. So yeah, it is just like I say, waking up one day and going, right, well, that's done. What am I going to do now? But inevitably, there's always something comes, and then you start to climb the ladder again to that peak of like, right, and then it's achieved, and then I just kind of know I'm coming back down the slide again, and then back up again. So, and
I guess having a network of
people around,
either friends, professionals, or whatever that you can offload on.
100%, yeah. That's like I say, it's the internals, the family, and everything who obviously know you better than anybody else. But then also, like I say, my audience in the business that's naturally created because of that. So yeah, that's how I kind of cope with it.
And Robert, from again, volume of businesses you deal with, are the material that the guys have talked about there in terms of whether it's cash flow, whether it's the minutiae of the business and how that change over time, what are the typical things that you see that are the negative stuff that people are having to manage, or business owners having to manage?
I would say, interesting. I would say one example being, bear in mind, for the last year I've been working very much more on the funding side of things. So I would say, actually, things like just dead simple stuff like relationships with, say, VCs or investors, where things aren't going quite right, or dead bog standard stuff like, someone puts money in your business, whether it's 20k or $500,000 or $1 million, whatever, they're going to want to see probably management accounts, whether it's quarterly or monthly. And the number of times where I've seen people take money on and they know what their obligations are, which is to produce management accounts for them. First month comes and goes and they haven't done it on time, and then the VC sends them an angry email, and then boom, and then you can. And I would say stuff like that, actually, just dead simple things all the time. Other problems, a lot of it's people stuff, really. Even my job, actually, when I got into it, I thought an awful lot would be about numbers, and then quite thankfully it's not. Actually, an awful lot's about people problems. Actually, an awful lot is just managing people and things, and you see that a lot in businesses as well. But all sorts of things, to be honest, a real array of issues.
Just looking back and looking forward, and Rick, I'd sort of start this one off with you if I can. Having developed and sold several businesses over the course of your career, how would you compare the ease of starting a new business, say, 20 years ago? When obviously you started very young. I should point that out to the audience that you're a very early starter. Compared to today.
Do you mean for me, or
well, just in your experience and also, I suppose, your general opinion, I guess, around that?
Well, as I said earlier, there was the level of risk for me when I first set out was not the risk that you guys had. You had families and mortgages. I had no risk. Whether or not the environment was any more conducive then to setting up a business, I don't really know. There's still clearly opportunity for new enterprise to enter the market. There are some sectors which are busier than they perhaps were then. I mean, the holiday cottage market, for example, when we first started, there were only perhaps 2 agencies in Northumberland that managed and sold holiday cottages, but by the time we sold, there might have been 10, alongside big national and international agencies all trying to get that cottage owner to get you signed up. So some sectors have changed. But no, say my attitude to risk has changed just through experience.
And I suppose broadening that out for young entrepreneurs, how, and again, it obviously depends from market to market, but how easy do you think it will be for a young entrepreneur, say coming out of university or college, whatever it might be, to go and start their business now? Do you think that'll be easier in 20 years' time, or do you think it will be just as difficult, just as hard, with similar challenges?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the challenges are similar, aren't they, to 10, 15, 20, 100 years ago. You're trying to sell something or trying to convince something that they want something. If you've really found a niche where there's a real need, then you've got a good chance of making some success. But no, I think it's the same.
Obviously, you're very successful. I'm sure, though, that within that, and I think you've alluded to it just a minute ago, Simon, that you've all used external suppliers, partners to help deliver supporting aspects around each of your businesses. I guess, just broadly, what would or do you consider outsourcing? Why do you outsource? And from that point of view, what makes for sort of good, long-lasting relationships, I guess, in that regard? Maybe start that off with Billy and Michael.
Why do we outsource particular parts of the business? I think for us, having, like I alluded to earlier, starting a business with no preconceived ideas and making the best of the situations as situations evolved and manifested themselves to us. I think what makes a really good entrepreneur is somebody who's energetic and has the ability to spin a lot of different plates and do everything at first. Customer service through to design. Everything that your business needs, you need to get a grip of all of it. And that's very much how we operated. But then as the business evolves, I think what makes it a better business person is then when you realize that you're not necessarily really good at any of those things, but you can do them all to get your idea off the ground. And the DNA of the idea of your brand or your business or whatever it is can flow through all those aspects, and then you hit a point where you've got to bring people who know better than you do about those individual facets of the business. And that is what we've started to do, and recognizing when you need to do that, I think, is what makes you good at business rather than being an entrepreneur.
And that's an evolutionary process from point you started through to where you are now.
Start, you don't want to let go of anything, you want to do it all yourself. And you can't afford to do it anyway, so you're doing it yourself. It's just, you're not very, some parts of it you'll be really good at, and other parts of it you'll not be so good at, and it's about identifying that, and then when you've got the capital to be able to do it, bringing in people who know more than you do to help you out and help you grow your business.
And I guess linking in with that, what makes for good relationships in terms of when you know, whether it's finance, HR, marketing, whatever it might be that you outsource, what makes for the best relationships?
For us, you know, we like to think of ourselves as good, genuine guys, and we've always, every business relationship we've gone into had to be a win-win. You can often find yourself on the end of a win-lose where you're the loser and someone's like your manufacturer who sold you 10 grand's worth of shoes and you never went back to them, that's the relationship dead. So that's not a good relationship. It's not going to go anywhere. And if you find yourself on the winning end of one of those relationships, equally you either end up with a bad reputation or it doesn't go anywhere. So we've always looked at the partnerships that we've developed as this has to be a long-term win-win. Otherwise, we're wasting our time.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, and communication as well. Right. You know, it's got to work, and building a rapport with your supplier.
Communication as well. That's something that like people will assume is like, oh, well, I can send an email and I can know how to use a comma. You know, it's all of it, isn't it? It's the caveat of it all in one pool. Like, can you pick up the phone? Can you build the relationship, like I said at the beginning, and understand people's lives and families and what's valuable to them? And ultimately, if you can get all those things sort of in one line, then you've got half a chance of establishing a good business relationship, I think, as well.
I suppose, Rob, from your point of view, you're a supplier and partner to many businesses. What do you think business owners look for when they're engaging with yourself?
I think people are probably who are bought into the process, and dealing with people, I suppose, who put it this way: if I come across someone in the, so I suppose I tend to deal with sectors that I understand to an extent or like, so things like e-commerce and retail and I suppose manufacturing, engineering, and tech, so far as I can understand them. Things I know like pharmaceuticals or biotech don't understand, and I haven't got much interest in really understanding. So again, I would never try to sort of sell myself to someone in that sense where I wouldn't really be the best suited person. And so it's a big element just about trust as well, it's what it comes down to.
So I guess we've kind of gone from the start point through to ongoing management of the business, and then obviously, at some points, exit happens. We've talked a little bit about it. I guess, Rick, focusing on you if we can, just for a few minutes. In terms of that point where you sell a business, could you give an insight into some of the experiences you've had in that area? And I guess you've alluded to some of them, but some of the positive and negative aspects of that process.
Well, the exiting of the main three businesses have all been completely different. The exiting the cottages business was great in that it was very straightforward. There was trust with the buyer and ourselves. They asked for some information, which we had, because we had been very diligent about keeping the books. We presented them, they looked at them, they were happy with what they saw, and the transaction was very straightforward. And I think the learning from that is that if you are ever thinking about selling your business, it's never too early to start pulling together all of that information and making sure it's in a format that is conducive to somebody buying you. So management accounts, all of that kind of stuff, records of progress, really important. In terms of the other exits, which were harder, so I sold my share of the marketing agency to my business partner. That was done far too informally. It was a chat in a pub that we agreed a price, and we'd say, well, we'll do it within a few weeks. It didn't happen like that. There was no formality, there were no solicitors. In fact, in the end, there were solicitors, and we both spent a fortune on solicitors, and it didn't happen for a year later. So that was quite stressful. So if you are going to make a decision to sell to somebody who wants to buy you, then to be able to do it without some legal support, I think, is naive, which is what we were at the time. And as I say, that became very complicated. The other one was just a mess, so I'll leave that one.
I guess again, Rob, with a day job hat on, in relation to that exit side of things, what are some of the sort of typical myths that you see in that process that you almost part of your role when you're having the conversation with somebody is to kind of, I guess, debunk those
myths? I suppose that the process can happen quite quickly. I'm not sure if it is actually a myth or not, but I would say it's, you know, that often selling businesses or just transactions in general. And we've had an MBO of a IT business went through. It was private equity back the other week. I wasn't working on it, but I mean that literally was 2.5 years at the extreme in that one. So I would say they don't happen particularly quickly. I think as well, I find with coming from a disposal sort of point of view, when people are selling businesses, sometimes say when they're getting into financial due diligences, certain things they might think. It depends on the attitude of the entrepreneur / sort of directors, business owner, whatever. But some that don't take certain aspects of the financials that seriously, almost think, well, when it comes down to the diligence, I'll be fine. We'll sort of skirt over it. And actual fact, it's things that are actually value destroying, you know, and all it's going to do is knock off.
So does that link in with Rick's point earlier about it's never too early to ensure, from a financial point of view, that your house is in order?
Oh yeah, so I think definitely keeping and this is actually my first business where I got into trouble was I just didn't really keep proper accounts, if much at all. So actually, if anyone asked me at any point in time, what stock have you got, how old is it, sort of dead stock, all that sort of stuff, I could probably work it out at some point. I did periodically, but and that was really what flung me into going into accountancy, because I was quite poor at those sort of areas. So I think things like that, and then things like having good second-tier management teams as well, which sounds a bit boring point, but I suppose if someone's selling their business but they're integral to the running of it, either a buyer's going to be a bit scared off any buyers because they feel that the minute they leave, the thing's not really going to exist anymore as such, or the buyer or the owner's going to be just tied in on some sort of earn-out for a couple of years, which they don't want to do. So again, to bring people in. So I suppose the idea is the owner could go on the business, you know, so he could go on holiday for a month or two and everything just cracks on as normal. So it's that sort of side of it as well.
Okay. Conscious of time, conscious of opening the floor to questions in a moment. So a couple of things just to wrap up if I can. I'd like to ask you all, what do you think the most important characteristic you would give any budding entrepreneur and why?
Resilience.
To be energetic.
Follow your gut.
Don't assume anything.
Okay. And I guess what would be the one most, again, following on from that, what would be the one most important bit of advice you would give any potential entrepreneur moving forward?
Just do it.
Yeah, well, following on from that, I think it's sometimes okay to give up when that particular idea is not working, but just don't ever stop.
I would say when I look at people I work with, you get some people who, hugely wealthy businesses who start small and grown. What separates those from the ones who aren't really going anywhere, who are very, very small, or an okay business but not making any money, which I would say comes down to focus. It's the ones who are really successful, ones who are just ultra focused on something, and that's the thing that always seems to separate them out. So I'd say focus.
I'm sure you guys will relate to this a little bit, but one of the ones that really sort of helped me was a Cath Kidston quote, which was not to worry about the fear of being found out. So like, I had this for years and I still have it to a degree a little bit, but when you're doing something, don't worry about what everybody else is doing, just do what you're doing. So obviously my business is a shoe business, and how many shoe businesses are out there in the world? And I can get quite obsessive with Instagram, and I guess really it's a similar disease as a young girl scrolling through and finding some supermodels and things like that and going, oh, well, why is that? Who am I? Do you know what I mean? So Cath Kidston wrote in her book, don't worry about being found out, just do it. So,
wow. So again, conscious of time. So I guess as we move towards the formula, just want to open it up. Any questions from the room at all in terms of anything you want to pose to the guys? Richard.
By choice, are you unemployable now? Apart from
I'm probably unemployable.
I think so. I think I'd really struggle to be employed. You know, the reasons I exited employment were because I've struggled with it. I struggled with the hierarchy and not being able to, you know, there's a post I wrote yesterday. I was once told to get back into my box because I was dipping my nose into departments that weren't my departments. So if I'm selling furniture, don't get involved with marketing, it's none of your business. Don't get involved with accounts, it's none of your business. And I just hated that. I completely hated it. And here I have control to influence, and I guess it boils down to a bit of that. So yeah, probably unemployable.
Unless you're not a good job.
Guys, what about you?
I would agree with that. I don't think I could
Yeah.
work for anyone again. I think it would end well.
Said with some real menace there. I like that. Yeah.
For whatever reason, I wasn't doing what I currently do anymore, and I ended up with an opportunity where I really believed in what they were doing, and there was a leader there who was really doing something that could resonate to it. I could probably buy into that. How it would work long term, I don't know, but sitting here now, if my business ended tomorrow for whatever reason, I would start another one.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I've actually,
That maybe, yeah.
well, I've sort of got a job at the moment with Northumbria University, but it's around student and graduate startups. So it's in the arena that I'm interested in. But I need something. So some startup activity, which is the bit that I love, the bit where I've got energy and enthusiasm. If I didn't have that, then that would just be a bit of a nightmare, really.
Any other questions, guys?
Ali Gobani. I've got a question for Robert and Rick. Let's say you are pondering a couple of ideas, 2 or 3 ideas. What's the sort of criteria that you guys would overlay to assess a business opportunity? What are the lenses that you look through to assess whether it's pursuing or otherwise?
So in terms of if you were, say, trying to raise venture capital or something like that, I guess, I would...
No,
what do you mean, sorry?
That's assuming you've sort of hit on a winning idea and you're convinced of it. I'm talking about whether you have a opportunity A, opportunity B, and opportunity C, and they're completely different. One's in retail, one's in manufacturing. You have specific ideas and opportunities. How do you go about saying, right, well, in my mind, I want a subscription business. I need a gross margin of X. What are these sorts of filters that you potentially would run through to narrow it down?
I suppose undoubtedly there's a market opportunity, and if it is a different product, there's really or service, say, how different is it to what's out there? Because you get some stuff, I think, where people can over-engineer sort of solutions, problems that probably don't exist. And I suppose, interesting in terms of margin, profitability and things, I guess where things are changing, we've got clients we do audits for and raise money for who, actually some of them their business is probably never going to make any money. I think of one particular one where it's all about, people talk about this big data angle, and really, and there's one particular client had a load, millions and millions from an investor, who actually I know for a fact that they're never intending for it ever to make money. They're not really bothered about that. It's the value of the data the business is building up, and that's the really valuable part to them. Of course, that's probably a reasonably rare in the sense that most business people are looking at it from the point of view it'll actually make profit, if you like. But I think certainly that's certainly one important element.
Essentially, differentiation in the market and whether the genuine need.
Yeah, I guess so. And then the big thing is actually probably which I haven't mentioned, probably the person in it or the people in it is the big thing. And VCs always take that approach when they look at things. A big part of it's just the people are investing in, and when they're looking at it, are they being an awful lot of people I would say fall down the trap of viewing the world how they want to view it. So they've got something they think, because I would use it, and I themselves. But the problem is no other bugger does. Someone was telling me the other day about an idea for a taxi app they had, And it sounded great, but I thought this is just what they're describing is actually Uber. And they said, no, but the thing is Uber, this would be for local taxi firms to use, you know, and people can white label. And I said, well, I'm sure even that sort of exists, you know. I said, no, it doesn't. I said, yeah, it might do, you know. But anyway, it's this sort of thing, you know, and people get tunnel visioned about it. So yeah, the people undoubtedly is probably actually the biggest thing, really.
Yeah, I like simplicity. If something's too complicated and I don't see the clear route for growth, or it seems a bit convoluted, that sends alarm bells. But like Robert said, you know, the people is important. Just being able to grasp it. But at this stage in my career, I'm also interested in getting involved and adding some value where I can. So that would be an important factor for me, is can I add something into this business as well? I don't want to be at this stage an arm's length investor. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's good.
Just to round things up, guys, really, I'd like to offer a huge vote of thanks to all of our panellists, I think, for their time, honesty, expertise and passion. I mean, it's been fascinating to listen to, and I sincerely hope that that's translated to you guys as well. So thanks so much. This is our first kind of formal business event. We've had social events and bits and pieces, so thank you all for supporting us, and we look forward to sharing more events with you as we move into the autumn. We'd obviously love you to stay. There's plenty of cold drinks on offer, alcoholic and otherwise, and obviously Scream for Pizza are just outside as well. So feel free to use the marina space as well as in here, and stay for hopefully something to drink and something to eat. Thank you very much, guys. Cheers.